I'm happy to welcome you today to this info session on the German Chancellor Fellowship. A little bit about American Friends of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. We're the US partner of the AvH. We're a US 501c3 nonprofit organization and execute our mission through shared programs in recruitment and alumni stewardship, and through programs paired with those of the AvH, as well as other services, publications and fundraising. I'm really pleased to welcome you to this session today. This is the first one we've ever hosted jointly with the AvH, and I hope it's helpful and of interest. Today you will hear from our colleagues at the foundation, the chair of the selection committee for the German Chancellor Fellowship, as well as from alumni. We hope you find it useful, and if you you think about your application or encouraging your students or mentees to apply. Without further ado, I'll now turn the floor over to Ms. Manuela Gerlach, Senior Program Coordinator for the German Chancellor Fellowship Program at the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Bonn. Manuela, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen. And hello, everyone, again from my side. As Ilonka already said, my name is Manuela Gerlach. I work at the selection department of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, and I'm here today to tell you a bit about the German Chancellor Fellowship. Before I start, I would like to thank the American Friends of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation for organizing this joint event. I would like to start to tell you about the foundation that hosts this program, which is the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. We are named after, apparently, Alexander von Humboldt, who lived in the 18th and 19th centuries and who was a famous German scholar. He was also known for being very engaged in supporting younger talents with their career development. And we exist in our current form since 1953, and we are given the tasks by different German federal agencies to identify and fund the best international researchers and scientists, but also young leaders, and to invite them to Germany. For us, the idea of the network is really important. We want our alumni not only to stay in touch with us, the foundation, but also with each other. So we invest a lot in alumni support. Our network counts about 30,000 Humboldtians, as we call them, and we are especially proud of our 55 alumni who have won a Nobel Prize. Although most of the people we sponsor are academics and scientists, we also have a program especially for young leaders, and that is what I want to tell you about today. The German Chancellor Fellowship. Maybe a little bit about the history of the program. It was set up in 1990 between Germany and the United States. This was shortly after the reunification of Germany, and it was created as a program to strengthen the bilateral ties between Germany and the US. In 2002, it was extended to Russia, in 2006 to China, in 2013 to Brazil and India, and in 2021 to South Africa. This happened always based on the initiative of the then Chancellor. Here you see our specific German Chancellor Fellowship network, and you can see that we have approximately 700 alumni, and the biggest community is in the United States. These are also the people you can try to connect with if you have any questions about the program, and we are very happy that 2 of those people have joined us today to tell us about their experiences. So who are we looking for with this program? We are looking for accomplished young professionals and promising university graduates who have interest in international issues. They should have proven leadership potential, and they should be prospective decision makers, multipliers, and thought leaders in their field. They can have a university degree from all disciplines, or they can be graduates, and they can also be already young professionals with more experience from a broad range of professional fields such as politics, public administration, business, media, as well as society and culture. I also would like to tell you something about the financial benefits, as this is something you're probably also very interested in. Because we are looking for the most promising young leaders, we also want to offer you something in return. So that's why we have, for German standards at least, a quite high monthly allowance. How high exactly depends on your level of work experience. We also have a very family-friendly arrangement. So if you want to bring your family, that shouldn't be a problem as well. And if your project requires it, you can also spend some time in another European country. Next to these allowances, we also offer an intensive German language course because we would like you to learn German. We hope that you become future bridge builders between Germany and the United States. And that's why it's very important for us that you learn German, and we want to support you with that. The nice thing about this program is that you will not only meet German during your fellowships, but also fellows and future leaders from other participating countries. For this interaction, we offer a number of networking meetings during the period of the fellowship. On the next slides, you see some impressions, for example, at the Humboldt Foundation's annual meeting with the federal president here in the middle. The final meeting 2019, this one still in real life, the visit to the Chancellery with Angela Merkel, the then Chancellor. This is a little bit different. The final meeting 2020 during the pandemic. We only had the chance to have a virtual meeting, but still you get to connect. And yes, now what you're most curious about, maybe the application requirements. So what do you need if you want to apply? You need the citizenship in one of the target countries. So you don't have to have the US citizenship, but you can also have the Brazilian citizenship, etc. You have to have initial proven leadership experience, and you have to have already during the application process a project plan designed by yourself, which should be feasible to be completed during the fellowship. So it's a 12-month project. You also have to have a confirmed host in Germany, 2 letters of recommendation from your current boss or former mentor, something like that. And your first academic degree should be completed less than 12 years before the fellowship's beginning. So in this current round, it should be completed less than 12 years at the 1st of October 2023. I would like to tell you a little bit more about finding a host, as this is one of the more difficult parts of the application process. Who can be a host? Anyone who works for a public or private institution in Germany can be a host. The host must have a discipline-related or professional link to your project. And it's important to know that you should start your search for a host as early as possible, as I already mentioned, it's not easy to find a host, and sometimes you have to contact a whole bunch of people. There are some sources who can help you with a search for your host. There's, for example, our website where you can find examples of former hosts, and you can contact those. You can also, of course, contact the American Friends of the AvH, and they also have a list of German Chancellor Fellowship alumni, including their host. So you can have a quick look there if anyone might be interesting for your project. You can also contact the alumni associations of German Chancellor Fellows, or you can get in contact with German companies and organizations in your country. So these are just a few ideas. Before I come to an end with my presentation, here's still some information about the timeline. So the call for applications was in May 2020. The application deadline, really important date, is 15th of October this year. And the selection meeting will be sometime in spring 2023. If you do not speak German yet, the fellowship would normally begin with a German language course, which is about 3 months. It starts, or the recommended start is in July of 2023. And then you have a time frame of 1.5 years where you can do your project. So you have 12-month project, and you should do those in this time frame. We would recommend you do it from October till October, but if there are some important professional aspects that, or family business that would impede those time frames, you can also come to or you can contact the foundation and get to another time frame, at least if the host agrees. So that is really important, that the host agrees with this change timeline. Here are some more impressions of German Chancellor Fellows. This is a picture of the fellows at the German Federal Constitutional Court in Karlsruhe during the study tour, which they do throughout Germany. Then we have the fellows at the final meeting in Berlin. This is it's a little bit older, but we had an alumni meeting in 2016 in Washington, DC, where also the former BUKA fellows from the US and also some from other countries met. And this is quite recently, I think last week, the current fellows above the roofs of Berlin. Yeah, before I come to an end, thank you very much for your attention. And just please remember, very important date, next application deadline, 15th of October. And the applications can be done online. And if you have any further questions that we do not manage to answer today in this meeting, you can always just send a quick email to info@avh.de or to info@americanfriendsofavh.org. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Manuela. Great presentation. And now I'm pleased to introduce Jack James, who is the chair of the US Selection Committee for the German Chancellor Fellows. Jack, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I wanted simply to underscore what Manuela has already said, but basically on the experience of having really been so impressed with the quality of people who have gone out of their way to find common denominators in this program. One of the things that I think one often underestimates is how many common challenges that Germany and the United States share in a way that is either political or economic or cultural. And there is a way of finding ways of learning from the experiences, whether it be in the environmental field, whether it be in digital areas, or whether it be in the teaching of certain subject matters. There's a world of opportunity in these programs. And we've seen over these last several years that I've been involved in it, an enormous amount of creativity among the candidates who have been lucky enough to get one of these Bundeskanzler fellowships. Now, one of the things that Manuela underscored is that it takes a little bit of work, because you have to figure out what it is that you want to compare, or what it is that you'd like to dive into in Germany on the basis of what your interests are, for example, in the US, or even more globally. But the notion of combining that interest with a sponsor who shares that interest with you, in terms of comparing it with maybe the US and Germany and even beyond, is vital. Because in your year of being in depth in Germany and diving into this project, you spend a lot of time with the individuals who are interested in sponsoring you, and they have a stake in your success. And as a mentor, or as a guide, or as a Sherpa, whatever you want to say. But I think that it requires some thinking, and you've got the time to do that between now and October 15th, those of you who are interested, to figure out, where do I find some opportunity to explore my interests in Germany with a sympathetic host and mentor who can help me connect the dots with the way that Germany does what it does on this issue, whatever it might be, and learn from it. And then, of course, we're hoping that in the context of that year, you are going to be able to take this insight and expertise and experience, and then bring it back to the US and try to figure out how it might plug into an American context. And of course, what we hope is that is a long-term investment on the part of your experience that will continue down the road, even far beyond the particular year that you spend in Germany as a BUKA fellow. So I can only underscore that it's a lot of fun. when it works, and to some extent, it's also a great deal of discovery, which is also very invigorating and I think inspiring. And we've seen it a lot. And so I encourage all of you to think about it, because some of the fellows that have done this before are often, available. I guess, Manuela, there are some of them who can offer their own experiences in doing this, but this is a program that has some long-term implications and some long-term impact on people's careers and interests and lives. And so, as I said, when I was looking at this program the first time, the phrase that came into my mind was carpe diem, grab the opportunity and don't let it pass. I can elaborate on that, Manuela or Ilanka, but I'll leave it to you.
Great, thanks so much, Jack, for your comments, and I'm sure you'll get some questions during the Q&A. Now, for the fun part, you get to hear from two fellows. One is currently on the German Chancellor Fellowship, and the other has recently returned. Shall we start with Emily?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Ilanka. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Burlinghaus. As Ilanka mentioned, I'm a current German Chancellor Fellow. I am based in Potsdam, Germany, which is just outside of Berlin, about 40 minutes. And I'm based at the Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies. I think the Humboldt Foundation did a pretty good job providing me with some questions that might be most interesting to you. So I can just go through, my motivation, my experience with the selection process, and what I've been doing over the past about 8 months since I got here at the end of September. So I am doing a sustainability focused project, which I can explain a bit more about. But the reason I ended up applying to the German Chancellor Fellowship was because I was working at a think tank in Washington, D.C., focused on global energy policy. And I think, like most jobs, I enjoyed what I was doing, but a lot of the work was also very administrative, and I didn't have the opportunity to just really dive into an aspect of research that I was really passionate about. And so through that experience at my last job, I sort of started considering what might be most interesting for me, at least from a research perspective. So I think I applied to the German Chancellor Fellowship a little late. So I think the deadline was mid-September at the time. And I started working on it like a month before. So if you all are working on your applications now, I think you're ahead of the game. So I reached out to someone that I had met through a previous job who connected me to a person at my current institute. And I formulated a proposal for a research project on improving the sustainability of battery supply chains for the clean energy transition. So basically, we see a lot of electric vehicles and energy storage being deployed, and that's great for clean energy, but there are a lot of problems throughout the supply chain. So my project is specifically focused on reducing emissions and human rights abuses and environmental issues throughout the supply chains of clean energy technology, specifically batteries. So I formulated that proposal over the course of a month in coordination with the professor based at my institute, who is now my host. I went through the selection process. I'm sure a lot of you are very interested in what that was like. So I'll admit I really over-prepared for the interview. I think when the Humboldt Foundation alerts you that you've been given an interview, it's very structured. It's 5 minutes. You can talk about yourself and your background, 5 minutes, prepare, talk about your proposed project, and then like 20 minutes of a Q&A. So I was quite nervous going into it, but the person who was interviewing me was actually a former US ambassador to Germany. So a little intimidating, but such a nice guy, put me at ease immediately. It was more of like a casual conversation about what led me to apply, what my motivation was, what I hoped to get out of the fellowship. And I think one thing that I would note is that I think a mantra that the Humboldt Foundation has really repeated over the course of the past year is that they invest in a person, not a project. I mean, they are investing in a project, but they also are investing in your holistic development. So in terms of the experience of being a German Chancellor Fellow, I mean, I've had a really positive experience just being able to focus on my research project. But I also think just the way that the program is structured overall, you have a lot of opportunities for like cross-cultural engagement, which I know that sounds like very much a buzz term, but I think it's really important, especially in this day and age. So right now, as Manuela mentioned, there are 5 countries that are represented, and there's close to 10 of us in each group. So US, Russia, China, India, and Brazil. And I think especially coming from a position in Washington, DC, where on like a country to country basis, the United States sort of has an adversarial relationship, especially with Russia and China. I think it's been extremely valuable to be able to develop relationships with other fellows from these countries. And I think it's really encouraging that the Humboldt Foundation has continued to support all the fellows, regardless of certain geopolitical developments in recent months. And it's really encouraging to see that they're expanding the program to South Africa as well. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the application process, my experience here, or what I'm hoping to do after this.
Great, thank you so much, Emily. And I'm sure you'll get a lot of questions. Dee, you are on. Hello.
Hello, what's up? So I am Deeneaus Polk, names, or you can call me Dee. So Emily did such a great job giving an overview from someone who's done the fellowship, and I did mine back in 2015. So I don't remember the peculiarities behind the process as much. So I want to talk about the experience of applying, how I went through that, my actual experience and what I've done since then, and sort of situate myself in this sort of exchange so that y'all can hopefully glean something for this process that you're about to go through. So yeah, I applied back in 2014 and became a fellow in 2015. I'll talk a little bit about the actual selection process because it was so interesting. If you're selected, well, okay, you go all the way back, and I decided to apply, and I do workforce development, vocational education training. Germany is very well known for that. It's apprenticeships and all this good stuff. And I was very curious about it and decided, I want to go after this thing, and applied at the time. I'm from Mississippi, and greetings from New Orleans right now. That's where I'm currently at. I really wanted to try and figure out how to change my state because, people hear all these different things about Mississippi, and I was really focused on trying to impact my community via vocational education training. So that opportunity presented itself, and I wanted to go after it, really focusing on best practices and learnings that I could bring back to my state. The process of finding a host was very interesting. A lot of cold emails with no response, and it was very sad because I didn't want to copy paste. You want to try and make your emails unique, and yeah, that did not go so well. But fortuitously, I posted on Facebook that I was looking for a host, just a Hail Mary, and someone saw the post. And it was like, well, I work at the German American Chamber of Commerce in Chicago, and my boss probably knows someone that you can sort of have as your host. So I connect with said boss, and yeah, I found my host at the Bundesinstitut für Berufsbildung in Bonn, and that's where I did my fellowship. That's the Federal Institute for Vocational Education. Doing that and finding that host was such a cool opportunity because at that point in time, the Obama administration was really wanting to invest heavily in apprenticeship. And so I got a chance to really go and learn so much from them, but I'm getting ahead of myself, get back to the selection process. So I got notified that that I was going to be interviewed for this thing. And I don't know if all of you don't notice that if you are moving to the next round, you fly to Germany to interview. And that's, oh, not anymore. Oh, Manuel, oh, shoot. Well, back then, so sorry. You flew to Germany to interview, and yeah, what a process. You used to have a poster. I lost my poster at the train station, had to go all the way back to get the poster. It was a whole thing. But that's a process that isn't there anymore. That's how much it's changed since 2015. Oh my goodness. So getting back more into the actual sort of experience I had. One thing I really wanted to do was connect leaders from the South to Germany in a way that was much more than people talking about Oktoberfest and random cars and whatnot. I really wanted to try and situate the challenges that both sides are going through together so that we could try to figure out some actual solutions. I got a chance to do that once again, learning about the MOUs that were going on between the German administration, Merkel's administration, and Obama's administration, and seeing those MOUs and adding commentary to them. Going and learning from corporations about how they do apprenticeship, learning from the different IHKs, the Industry Handelskammer, these different chambers of commerce in Germany that really decide on so many different aspects of their system and why, and sort of defining why the German system is so good at training people. But you know, the most important thing I got to do was go to it's called the Hannover Messe. And at that Hannover Messe, that was the year that the US was hosting. And you got a chance to sort of connect with people who are at the highest levels working on workforce stuff. And that led me to leaving from the fellowship and actually going back to Mississippi and becoming the director of the Mississippi Apprenticeship Program, something that I helped create coming out of my fellowship program. So I got to take the different learnings and research I got to do in Germany as a Bundeskanzler Stipendiat, as a German Chancellor Fellow, and implement it in my state. And so we built an apprenticeship system out of nothing from the ground up, and that thing still is there, and it's trained over a couple thousand people, and it's something that was birthed from this fellowship. So it's the Bundeskanzler Stipendium, the German Chancellor Fellowship, is something that I always owe so much to. In doing that, that time with MAP, with the Mississippi Apprenticeship Program, I really got to dig in deep with we're really trying to change the systematic sort of approach that we engage with education in Mississippi, because we are so heavy on baccalaureate education in the US, and I really wanted to try and push this alternative for folks who aren't trying to necessarily go to a four-year college. And so we built something out, earn and learn opportunities that give everybody a chance. And you know, there were so many different pieces, but it was so amazing because the people that I connected with in Germany, the Mississippi leaders that I wanted to connect with, I got to go back and actually help build this apprenticeship program with those same people. They knew about apprenticeship at a deeper level because of the research I got a chance to do in Germany as a German Chancellor Fellow. So all of that came together, and I helped build this thing. But then I decided to go to grad school, and so in 2020 I finished up at the Harvard Kennedy School and got a chance to do that no cost because of this. It all sort of flows together. I got this fellowship in 2015. I became the director in 2017. All of a sudden, I'm at the Kennedy School with no cost, and all of those things flew together. And now I'm in a position because at the Kennedy School, I was also able to. I was a chair of the German American Conference. This is one of the biggest conferences between the Germany and U.S. that's student-led, and I got to chair that thing and really pushing workforce still, but also pushing the fact that typically these relations are typically only for certain people. And I do not look like the person that's typically in a German Chancellor or transatlantic partnership conversation, but you get to bring different perspectives into a conversation that has been all too stagnant, and pushing something that for me means so much, because now post Kennedy School, I founded this organization called Elevate, and we're taking it to another level in regards to workforce development and really looking at not just sort of improving our workforce systems, but how do we also create better job quality? How do we help put people in a position so that they're able to really aspire towards whatever they want, but doing it in a transatlantic focus, so that we talk about issues that are real for families on both sides of the Atlantic, for people on both sides of the Atlantic, that isn't just couched in just looking at what happened with wars and what happened with economies and all that. How do we talk about the real issues around LGBTQ IA issues? How do we talk about gender issues? How do we talk about racial issues at a level that's much deeper than surface level stuff? And so with Elevate, now I'm actually, at the end of this week, a member of the Bundestag, Metin Hakverdi, is coming over, and he's coming to the South. Typically, there's all the time you have members of parliament from Germany coming over to the US, but they never come to the South. They never come and learn about the folks, but there's so much foreign direct investment in the South. And so I've been pushing it and finally got that next step. And so he's coming, and he's going to be in Birmingham, he's going to be in New Orleans, and really showcasing what is going on here, not just from a foreign direct investment perspective, but also really learning about the people and the culture and the aspects of life that unite us and bind us together, that has been the case for such a long time, for decades now. So I really want to reimagine a transatlantic partnership and really renew it. But all of that began so long ago with the Bundeskanzlership in 2015. And since then, I've been able to do so much, and I hope to be able to do even more things. But I'm just so grateful for the experience, and I'm grateful to be in this position of talking to you all. And as a result, I feel indebted to the foundation, and therefore I feel indebted to anybody who's applying, because I want to see the best of the best be able to do this program. So if y'all have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. I don't know if they're going to share contact information, but feel free, because I want to talk to you about the experience. I've had friends who I talked to about the fellowship who have subsequently done the fellowship and got selected. So it's been I look back at my time as a German Chancellor Fellow, because I've done all of them. I've done Fulbright, I did the Bosch Fellowship, I just finished that up. And I look back on my time as a Bundeskanzlerstipendiat, and everything changed for me with that experience. And I didn't know it at the time how important it was, but took so much from it. And so I hope you all apply. Feel free to reach out to me, and any questions, I'm here for you.
Great, thank you so much, Dee, and to Emily for your perspectives. It's so nice to hear from both current and former fellows about their experiences. We can now open things up. I've opened the chat, and if you have any questions at all for our speakers, for Manuela, and also for the chair of the selection committee, please go ahead and type your questions into the chat and we'll get to it. Okay, first question. I don't quite understand what a host is. Manuela, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, maybe I can answer this question from like a formal point of view, and maybe if Emily or Deeneaus would like to add something on. So for us, it's important, or it's necessary, that you have a host, which is a person in Germany who has agreed to host you during your fellowship. So it should be someone that is, that has some link to your professional expertise or to your project topic. And he or she should be able to help you during your time in Germany with your project, being getting in contact with other important people about the topic, mentoring you, answering questions about the specific topic. So it's more like a mentor. It also can be like really that you are stationed at this host and his institute, but that's not like, it doesn't have to be the case. Like, you can also work with your host like from home office if that's possible, and with your project. But so the most important thing is that the host can mentor you, can help you with your project, so that both you and your host will learn from each other, and that you will have a successful project in the end. But yeah, maybe the other speaker can also add something to that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is, on your, like, if you go on the application portal, there's essentially 3 different components. So there's the proposal that you have to fill out yourself. There's the 2 letters of recommendation, and then a third, which is like the host, like letter of intent, I think. So you can essentially imagine your application process to be 2 different things. You need to independently reach out to someone, either in your network, or, like Dee was saying, a lot of cold emails trying to find someone willing to host you. But yeah, that's something that you have to do entirely independent of, the Humboldt Foundation.
I'll also add, something that I hope is still the case. I need to go back and look at what the aspects of the fellowship are today, because it's changed a little bit, but there's support for hosts as well, right? Manuela, still? Yeah, okay, good. And so, I was connected to the federal government in Germany, but you'll find all sorts of different people, and you don't want to find a host and say, oh, they'll give you money if you host me. But that support for the host, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't have the bandwidth, the capacity to be able to host you, but there's support that the host would get every month that would be for you. And so I would say to make sure that you look at all aspects of a host and sort of make sure you lay that out there, but that there's support for the actual host too, so that it's not as difficult in reaching out, and they know that it's not a big burden on them.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions. I think these are probably for Manuela. How long does the process take, and is higher education required for this program?
Yes, unfortunately, the process does take quite a while. So 15th of October, the application deadline is, and then we start to get in all your applications, check them for formal requirements, etc. And then, as we have like a review from the selection committee members, this does take quite some time as well. And then the next step, like with the interviews, starts. So in all, it's from October till end of April, May. So end of April, May, you will have the final decision. If you've made it in the second round, there are some people who won't make it to the second round, to the final round. They will be rejected beforehand, and they will get their notice in February, March. So it's a few months. And higher education. So we have as a requirement a bachelor degree, or some degree that is equivalent to a bachelor. So this is actually a strict formal requirement. We cannot do anything about that. But you do not have to have a master or a doctorate or something like that. We also really appreciate people who have a bachelor and have some years of professional experience. They have the same chances as someone with a master degree. So the only strict requirement is the bachelor degree.
Great, thanks. And then this comes from Adrian Silver. What advice can you share about shaping the independent research project? Dee and Emily, your thoughts?
Dee, go ahead.
For me, I had been working in politics and workforce in Mississippi, doing policy work around education. And so I had a very strong idea of exactly what was going on and why I needed to do the fellowship to try and improve upon it. And I also knew exactly who I was going to try and bring to the table and fleshing out the fellowship and actually doing it. So it really is, and I think something that needs to be said is you as a person, you want to manifest who you are as a person in this application too, right? So I don't come from much in Mississippi, and I'm very frustrated by the challenges that so many people go through in Mississippi. So I really let that scream out into the application, and that I really want to try and improve upon what we see in Mississippi. And I think there's something in Germany for me to learn that I can bring back. So I shaped it in that way, that I know all the players, I know all the policymakers connected to this work. I know this stuff inside and out, but I don't know what is there, what's the magic there. And I want to try and bring it back. And so I let that sort of be clear, and it worked for me.
Yeah, I think you should just be passionate about whatever you're proposing and not be too concerned about what you think the Humboldt Foundation might be looking for. I mean, that's sort of a question that I had when I was applying. And truly, just based on the diversity of projects that exist in my cohort and from what I understand about previous cohorts, it can be literally anything. I would recommend something, A, that you're passionate about, B, that you have some sort of background in. So it might be helpful to give you all a sense of what the projects sort of look like in my cohort. So there's a number of us who are doing sustainability focused projects, but there's some who are focused on like right-wing extremism, digital privacy rights, arts and culture. Someone's like working in coordination with a film fest. And it doesn't just have to be a research like report output at the end of your fellowship. So it can be a series of workshops or, a podcast or a film, I think that's one thing that I was a bit confused about when I was first applying. So really anything that you're passionate about is something that the Humboldt Foundation would potentially be interested in. It's just about how you present the project and how you present yourself.
And remember, the foundation is much more interested in you as a person, investing in you as a person than the project. So really do let yourself flow in the application.
Maybe to just add on this from the foundation's perspective. So of course, Emily's right. It should be something you're passionate about and that you have experience in. But what we are also looking for, it's not always possible, but ideally it should be a project that has a connection between Germany and the United States in this case. So if you're looking for lessons learned between Germany and US, if you're looking for like the relationship between Germany and the US in special topics, that's like the kind of projects we are looking for ideally. And it also should have a societal importance. So it should not be something like just academically interesting. So it should be something that, like, for example, project of Deeneaus is a good example, something that you can bring back home and you can change something in your state, in your city, and hopefully it will have a lasting impact on the relationship between Germany and the US.
Great, thank you. Another question came to us from Mitchell. How is initial leadership defined? The two speakers came from such different levels of job experience. Could you give more examples of successful candidates with regard to leadership?
Yeah, so Jack, if you want to answer, you can answer as well, but I can just start. This is actually quite interesting in our program because we have such different profiles. So we do not have only like long-term professionals, but we also have like recent graduates, and sometimes they ask, how can I show my leadership potential? So we are looking for everything in your application that can show us that you have proven leadership potential. It doesn't have to be that you had a leadership position somewhere. It can also be shown in volunteer work, or in some other stuff like chairing a committee, stuff like that. So if you have these experiences, you can also be a recent graduate. So we have recent graduates that just finished college, and they don't have real life professional experience, but they still got the fellowship because they had other experiences they could prove. And so I don't have any examples right now on the top of my head, but like we have a varied spectrum of fellows from all ages. So you don't have to worry about that if you don't have much professional experience just yet.
Great, and a question on travel, housing, work visas. Will the AvH assist our host institutes in acquiring these documents?
Yes, I think that's a question for me as well. It's rather a question for my colleagues in the sponsorship and network department, but I can tell you that yes, they will help you with the visa process. I don't think that they will actually help you finding housing or something like that. Maybe the fellows can answer that question. But of course, there's a colleague in the sponsorship and network department that will be responsible for you. And if you have any questions, they will be happy to answer them and help you in any way they can.
Great, and a question about South African fellows. Do we currently have them, and how many?
Yes, we the call was in 2021, and so we have this year recently selected new South African fellows, and we have 10. So the first cohort is a full cohort, and we are very happy about that. And I think most of them, they are not in Germany yet, but they will arrive soon, hopefully, if everything works out, and we are very happy to include them in our program.
Excellent. A question for Dee. How did you find the fellowship's perspective on your desire to return to work and invest in your home community rather than taking your work to a larger city?
You know, I can't imagine. I'm a country boy, so I couldn't even imagine living in like going to a bigger place with my ideas. I think very much so. I love Mississippi. I love my home state, and I couldn't imagine doing that work anywhere else. And so if they had decided they wanted me in a bigger city, it wouldn't have worked out. Point blank, period. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that they really embraced it, and it's obviously paying dividends now with the work I'm doing.
Great. And at the end of the fellowship, is there some sort of deliverable, such as a presentation, report, or publication?
Yes, so there's no presentation or no, there's no presentation, but you should have as an end result of your project some kind of result, whether it be a report, a publication, a workshop, like Emily said, something that you can show as a result of your project. And there's also like a report that you do from the foundation. But in this case, I think maybe Deeneaus can answer this question a little bit more, because I'm not sure exactly, because this is something my colleagues do.
Yeah, I didn't. There was definitely no submission of anything to the foundation from my side. I will say though, because I don't know if the extensions still happen, Manuela. Yeah, so you can apply. You have to apply for that though. So once you get to the end of the 12 months, if you still have some lingering things that you want to talk through and whatnot, or work through, then you can apply for an extension. And so I had to submit. I did a series of white papers and some meetings, and so I had to submit that to the foundation, and they decided. And it's not 100% that they'll do it. So just bear that in mind. But nothing concrete that you have to submit.
Great. And a quick question, can a host be a relative?
That's an interesting question. I think it never happened before. So I don't want to be too strict, but I think it might be possible, but you have to have a good argument why this person should be your host. So it shouldn't be your host because it's your relative. It can be your host if you can prove that there are some links between your professional experience or your project. But I still would rather recommend searching for another host, because it might look a little bit like, okay, he or she didn't find another person, so they took some relative. So it is not forbidden, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Great. And for Dee and Emily, during your project, what was the most unexpected challenge you overcame?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say that I've faced a huge challenge, I think, especially compared to maybe what the previous cohort experienced with COVID. I mean, there were some COVID restrictions while I was here, so I didn't get to experience like the in-person interview process or the in-person like language courses. I think one thing that's more of like a general comment is the level of involvement of your host really varies. So some of like my friends in the cohort have hosts who almost like didn't understand the expectations of the fellowship, and they integrated them in almost fully, or like tried to integrate them in to their teams almost as like an intern, which is not what is supposed to happen. I mean, for me, I have a relationship with my host, but he doesn't provide tons of support in terms of contacts and like research support and review and all that. So I think just going into it, you shouldn't have some sort of set expectation that your host is going to be super involved in your independent research project or is just going to leave you alone entirely to do your independent research. So I think that's just one thing that can be a little bit difficult to navigate.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Emily. You don't want to go into any institution and have them look at you as free labor in a sense, because that's not the intention of the fellowship. And I will sort of add on to it with, your project, you're designing your project usually in the US, and you're cold emailing people and trying to see if they'll latch on to you with your project, but you get to the end and you're selected and you're undertaking this thing, and it might not work out exactly as you thought it would with your project. But remember, the foundation is very interested in you as a human, as a leader, potential leader. And so they want to know, they want you to get as much as you can from it. So the project, and my challenge, I guess, my project changed up a bit once I actually got to Germany, and I had to sort of about face and recalibrate some aspects of it. I was a little bit too ambitious in what I was trying to do. So I guess that was the main thing I had to overcome. But yeah, really want to emphasize, don't just go to some org just because you need a host, because once you get there, it's very hard to switch up hosts and whatnot. I remember folks during my year who were having not so good relationships with their hosts. So you really do want to try and get as strong of a foundation as possible, but then also bear in mind that your project might change once you actually get to Germany.
Great. Okay, and then we have a question about the time frame. Does the fellowship allow for other part-time commitments during the 12 months? Manuela, do you want to take that one?
Yes, maybe first I would like to answer the question before the one with the challenge. I think we haven't answered that. Yeah, there are a lot of projects actually that are in film and media. I cannot tell you a specific project right now. I think there is one of the current fellows is doing a project with like a film festival, but I can advise you to just go on our website, because there we have a list of all the current fellows, but also former fellows, and you can have a look at them and what they did. And I think you can find all sorts of projects, and maybe they inspire you. But yeah, now the next question. this is actually also a sponsorship and fellowship question, but I try to answer it. So it is possible to have part-time commitments, but the emphasis should be on part-time, because if you take or accept the fellowship, you commit yourself, or you agree to commit yourself fully to the fellowship. So you should not do other work outside of the fellowship. It is possible to a certain degree, but this is something you should work out then with your colleague or with your program officer in network and sponsorship. But it is possible to a certain degree. And you can visit family, but that's also, it's quite restricted. I don't have the actual time frame, but again, that's something you can ask if you're selected. I think that's something, it might be interesting now as well, but it's rather something you can organize when you are selected. But there's a website especially for the fellows, where you can find all the guidelines for being a fellow, so you can have a look there as well.
Great. And then a question about the time frame extension of the completion date of a bachelor's degree. For example, if someone was ill or raising children for 1 or 2 years, could one have gotten a bachelor's degree 13 to 14 years ago?
Yes, of course. We do take child rearing periods or illness or some other examples like that into account. So if you apply, you should just make that. Actually, we do now have, like, you can tick it if you have like a period of time you were not able to work because you had children after your bachelor, and then we will take that into account. And this way, the time frame for the 12 months after the bachelor, it will be getting larger. So if you have children and you have your bachelor like 13 years ago, it should be possible to apply. Yes, you can also ask our colleagues at info@avh.de if you have like specific questions, and they will like calculate the time frame for you and will tell you if it's possible or if it's not possible. But as I see it in your question, it should be possible.
Great. And yes, we will make a recording available on our website, hopefully in the next few days. And another question, I think also for Manuela and our two speakers, apart from the networks offered by the program, is there any other assistance the foundation offers?
So specific assistance is, I have to think about it. So we have certain colleagues in our network and sponsorship department, and they will answer any questions you might have with regard to visa before your stay in Germany, with like insurance and stuff like that. So there will be some assistance. And if you have like problems with your project, your host should be your first person to speak to. And otherwise, yeah, I'm not sure which kind of assistance you are asking about. So yes, we do have like some personal assistance, but we have those meetings, but we do not have like a weekly meeting where you can come together and ask questions about how to do your project, for example, like that.
One thing, real quick, Manuela, I think y'all still, with the European states, y'all pay, well, they pay for the flight over, but then also, if you want to go to another country, they'll help, they'll pay for different aspects of that. I don't know exactly now, but I remember that being the case back then.
Yes, there is some certain allowance for those kind of stays as well. Yeah.
Great. Question about how developed does your project proposal need to be as part of the application? How much room is there to refine the project or make adjustments once you get into the program or to Germany?
So from the point of view of the foundation, your project should be final as it is. So you should have a fully developed project with your application, because we judge your application and your project on basis of these application, on this application. So it should be fully developed. what happens during your time in Germany, that's something I don't know anything about. So there might be some changes, but they shouldn't be too grave. So you can, of course, make adjustments if you find out that maybe something does not quite work out the way you want to, or you do not find potential interview partners, for example, or some geopolitical events happen, so you have to adjust your project, but it should be doable as it is in your application documents. That's important, because that's what we are looking at and what we are doing our recommendation for the selection committee for. So that's important.
Great. What level of German is required for the fellowship? How much will a typical candidate use the language?
So the first part of the question, I think, is for me. So you do not have to have former German language skills. If you have so, that's great, but it's enough if you speak English, and that's, I think you all speak English. So our requirements are English or German. And how much will a typical candidate use the language? I think that depends on the candidate and how much they like the language, and also it depends on the project. I think if they are in contact with a lot of German people, they might talk a little bit more German than other fellows, but I think I will give over to Emily or Deeneaus. How much German do you really speak during a fellowship?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I came in, I had never studied German before, so I was absolute zero. And then I did the intensive course before coming over here, and then studied for a couple months, like in-person German classes in Berlin. I mean, yeah, it really varies. Like some people in my cohort who are in like smaller cities, or like, I mean, it really depends on the type of organization. Like if you're doing a lot of like local impact work with communities in small areas, then the majority of your fellowship is going to be in German. I mean, for me, I work at a very international institute. So unfortunately, my day-to-day German is relegated to, you know, if I go to a store or, you know, a restaurant or something like that. So yeah, it depends.
Ja, also ich bin ziemlich fließend mit Deutsch, also ich kann diese Sprache so ungefähr. And so with me, German, I used it as much as I could. I was at the federal level, so a lot of ways they really wanted to speak in German anyway. I will say Germany is very well known for being a challenging place to learn German sometimes, because all the Germans want to speak to you in English all the time. Just bear in mind, if you don't have a very high level of German, it's okay. Usually they are very accommodating to not speaking the language. But it really is important to try and learn the language. They really do respect you much more if you even try to speak in German. So yeah, just bear that in mind.
Great. One more question. Have there been fellows who wanted to make a global transatlantic impact instead of a direct connection between Germany and the US? Can you share one example?
So yes, there have been candidates with such kind of projects. I have been looking for an example right now, but I think the current fellows, they do actually have those bilateral projects, but there have been other projects, and there also have been projects who look more at the European perspective in the US-European relations, and not specifically German US relations. So that's possible also. And yeah, if you can really support your argument that it's important to have a global perspective and not just the German US perspective, then it's also possible. Yeah. And again, just have a look at our website. You can find all the fellows and alumni in their projects. And I think this is the most helpful site, because you can, I think you can find a lot of ideas what to do, and what's possible in the case of the fellowship.
Great. Anything else you'd like to share before we close?
I I think we had a lot of questions. Thank you for that. And yeah, I'm just gonna hope that of the participants of this meeting, some of them will actually apply. We are looking forward to your applications, and yeah, wish you the best luck during the application process. And again, if you have any questions that could not have been answered today, or you think of other questions later on, just contact either the American Friends of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation or our colleagues at info@avh.de. They will also be happy to help you with like more specific questions maybe.
Great, thanks so much, Manuela. Thanks, Dee. Thank you, Emily, so much for taking the time today. Thanks everybody for your interest and your enthusiastic participation. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Emily, Deeneaus, Alonka, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.